I always knew my sister Dana was reckless, but I never imagined she would sell the house our parents gifted her mortgage-free for some fantasy of freedom, then come crying back months later broke and dragging 3 kids behind her. The worst part, my parents turned to me, the one they always said was too independent, and told me it was my duty to take her in, feed them, pay their bills, and even cover her children's school fees. I stood there silent, heart cracking open. After everything I sacrificed, my career, my peace, my youth, they still expected me to fix her mess. That day, I stopped being the family savior. They don't know what I'm planning next. My name is Valerie Hart, and I live in Pennsylvania. They always said Dana was free-spirited. That's what they called it when she dropped out of her job for the 5th time in 3 years. When she let her kids eat ice cream for breakfast and skipped rent until eviction notices piled up, they just chuckled. That's just Dana. But when she sold her 3-bedroom home, the one our parents gifted her title and all for cash, just to travel the country in a van and rediscover herself, I couldn't laugh anymore. I couldn't even breathe. I remember the exact moment the group text arrived, one grainy photo of a van parked next to a cactus, kids half smiling in the background, and Dana's caption, "We're finally free. No more walls, just sky." My fingers went cold. That was my niece and nephews in that picture. No shoes, no seatbelts, and no roof to call home. 3 months later, it was me standing at the stove when the doorbell rang. My parents were on my porch, faces tight, hands clasped, and behind them Dana and her kids, their closed, wrinkled cheeks red from windburn. I could smell the desperation before they even said a word. My mother gave me that look, that guilt-laced blend of pleading and passive aggression she's perfected over decades. "Valerie, it's just for a while. Just until Dana gets back on her feet. You have the space." My father didn't say much, just nodded like it was settled. Dana behind them didn't even look at me. She had her phone out. Texting someone like this was all a casual stop on her adventure. I swallowed, the scream rising in my throat. Just for a while. That's how it always starts. What they didn't say, but what I knew instantly, was that Dana had burned through every cent she made from the house sale. That her healing journey hadn't just failed, it had collapsed in on itself. No school for the kids, no money for food, no plan. But somehow the expectation still stood tall. I would rescue them, because I was the stable one, the successful one, the unmarried, childless, no-drama one, the cold one according to Dana, the one who always had enough to share. It's funny how being responsible becomes a punishment. How you can do everything right, sacrifice without applause, and still be handed the bill for someone else's fire. I let them in. What else could I do? I fed the children, set up the guest room, paid for clothes, school forms, bus passes, Wi-Fi so Dana could job search. And for the first week, I told myself it was fine. I was doing the right thing. But deep down, something began to rot. Something dark. Something bitter. Because no one apologized. No one even said thank you. And the moment I saw Dana post a selfie at a downtown coffee shop with the caption, "Recharge break, self-care, single mom life," I realized she never planned to stand on her own. She knew I'd catch her. Just like always. And our parents, they didn't see it. Or didn't want to. In their eyes, Dana was fragile. Dana needed support. Dana needed love. And I was just the net beneath her cliff. That night, I stood alone in my kitchen lights, off watching the outline of Dana's van parked in my driveway. A $400,000 house thrown away for freedom. And now the burden of her failure was mine. But I wasn't the same Valerie they remembered. Not anymore. And they were all about to find out. I didn't confront them right away. I let the charade play out. Let them believe I was the same old Valerie, quiet, dependable, endlessly obliging. But inside me, something had cracked. Something that had held my tongue for years. Every sigh from Dana, every awkward silence from my father, every passive-aggressive thank you from my mother, chipped at whatever remained of my patience. It started with a bill. The school asked for lunch deposits and supplies. I asked Dana if she wanted to handle it. She scoffed. Well, I would if I had any of that house money left. You know, it all went to gas and repairs. But you can swing it right, it's just $200. I felt my jaw tighten, but I said nothing. I paid it, like I always did. Later that night, I called my mother. I needed to say something, anything, to let her know this wasn't okay. But before I could speak, she hit me with it. Valerie, your sister has been through so much. She made a mistake, sure. But at least she's brave. You've always had your career, your savings, your neat little home. Don't be selfish now. Selfish. That word burned. It echoed in my chest, long after the call ended, bouncing off every part of me that used to feel proud of my choices. I had done everything right. I had stayed home after college to help them during Dad's stroke. I had paid for groceries when Dad was laid off. I had canceled my trip to France when Mom needed knee surgery. And somehow, I was selfish. That night, I sat in my car in the garage for an hour, just breathing in the silence. My house no longer felt like mine. Every corner was filled with noise, mess, and expectations I didn't ask for. Dana had taken over the living room with her yoga mat and spiritual books. Her kids left their clothes strewn across the hallway. And my parents called every evening now, not to check on me, but to remind me of my duty. I began to realize something I never dared admit before. My family didn't see me. They saw a function, a bank, a spare room, a fallback plan. And every time I tried to set a boundary, I was met with guilt. Dana's not like you, honey. You know how sensitive she is. You've always been the strong one. Don't let us down. I started dreaming of escape. Not just from Dana, but from all of it. The manipulation, the burden, the constant suffocating pressure to fix everything. One morning I walked into the kitchen and overheard Dana on the phone. Yeah, she's uptight as hell, but she'll pay. She always does. She laughed. That laugh, light casual, so certain, nearly broke me. I left the room, went to my home office, and locked the door. I pulled out an old notebook, flipped to a blank page. At the top, I wrote 3 words in big block letters. No more rescue. That was the moment I began building a plan. A quiet, calculated exit. They thought I was just tired. They had no idea I was done. The past has a way of knocking when you're already raw. One night after Dana's kids went to bed and she left to clear her head, I stood in the hallway holding a blanket that didn't belong to me. I was so used to caring for other people that my hands moved automatically, folding, cleaning, putting everything back where it should be. But inside I felt like I was crumbling like a ghost, haunting a house that no longer remembered me. I walked into the guest room. My guest room, the one I used to reserve for peaceful mornings with coffee and books, and sat on the edge of the bed. For the first time in years, I let myself remember. I remembered saying no to Stanford when I was 18 because Dad had his first stroke and no one else could stay home. Dana had just started college, and my parents couldn't handle losing both of us. So I stayed. I applied locally. I worked 2 part-time jobs. I graduated quietly without applause. I remembered when Mom needed help after her surgery, and Dana was too stressed with her newborn. I took a leave of absence from my job, moved into the old house, and spoon-fed our mother mashed potatoes at midnight, while Dana posted pictures of manicures and Mom's day-out lunches. I remembered paying off Dana's $8,000 credit card debt when she said she was being harassed by collectors and just needed a clean slate. I never saw a penny back, not even a thank you card. And yet somehow, when she fell apart again, I was the one expected to stretch myself thinner. As I sat there, the memories became heavy, like bricks being stacked on my chest. I had no children, no husband, no one who would rearrange their life for me. Every corner of my adult life had been shaped by the needs of others, by their emergencies, their dreams, their mistakes, and all I had in return was a guest room turned daycare center, a savings account rapidly shrinking, and parents who treated me like the default setting for everyone else's disasters. Tears began falling quiet but steady, not from weakness, but from the aching realization that this unreciprocated loyalty had become my entire identity. I was the strong one. I was the stable one. I was the one who never needed help. But that was a lie. I did need something. I needed anyone to put me first. And that's when the quiet voice inside me, the one I'd buried for decades, finally whispered, "They don't deserve you anymore." That voice wasn't angry. It wasn't loud. It was calm, resolute. It came not from rage, but from clarity. For the first time in my life, I realized I wasn't weak for wanting peace. I wasn't selfish for choosing freedom. I wasn't cruel for being done. There's a moment, small, almost invisible, when a person breaks. It's not always loud. Sometimes it's the quietest thing that shatters you. For me, it was over cereal. It was 7:12 a.m. on a rainy Wednesday. I had just finished packing Dana's youngest child's lunch because she'd overslept again. The house smelled like burnt toast, the dog had peed on the carpet, and the sink was piled high with dishes, none of them mine. I handed the little one her backpack, tied her shoes, and reminded Dana for the third time that week that parent-teacher conferences were coming. Dana looked up from her phone, rolled her eyes, and muttered loud enough for her children to hear, "Jesus, Valerie, you don't have kids. Maybe that's why you act like such a control freak." She laughed. The kids laughed too nervously, unsure if they were supposed to. I froze. The orange juice I was pouring spilled over the rim and onto the floor. 1,000 thoughts swarmed at once. She had said it before behind my back, but never like this. Not out loud, not in my home, not in front of children who were already learning that the one person holding their life together was just a joke. I didn't say anything. I just set the glass down, wiped my hands, left the room. But something inside me curled up and died in that moment. Something soft, something hopeful. And in its place, something sharp took root. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just made a decision. I was done. That night, Dana went out again, claiming she needed me time after a long day. She came home at 10:40 p.m., smelling like wine and entitlement. I was already in my room, door locked, laptop open, tabs full of real estate listings, moving quotes and legal documents. I was making a new plan. Not a plan to talk it out. Not a plan to set better boundaries. A plan to leave. Completely. No explanation. No guilt. No more permission. I began transferring funds from my main account into my investment account, the one no one knew about. I changed the password on the safe deposit box. I updated my emergency contacts and gave my boss 3 weeks' notice quietly, without a word to anyone. But most importantly, I began packing the pieces of me I had forgotten about. The books I hadn't read in years. The pottery tools I once loved. The photographs of my own travels before I stopped taking them to save for everyone else's dreams. I began reclaiming my life, piece by piece. And all the while, Dana kept laughing, kept calling me uptight, kept leaving messes for me to clean. But what she didn't know, what none of them knew, was that each of her jabs was just another nail in the box I was sealing shut. The box labeled past life, and I was ready to bury it, for good. The strange thing about revenge is how silent it can be. You imagine it loud, dramatic, maybe even explosive. But for me it was a whisper, a mouse click, a signature, a locked drawer. Every move I made from that moment forward was quiet, clean, and deliberate, because I wasn't just leaving Dana behind. I was leaving a version of myself behind too. I started with the deed to the house. It was paid off, of course. I'd worked for 20 years, and made every mortgage payment myself. But I didn't want Dana squatting in the ashes of my old life after I was gone. So I called my lawyer, told him I wanted the house legally transferred into a trust, one that would be liquidated upon my departure. The proceeds already marked for a relocation fund, a scholarship donation under my name, and a quiet retirement by the coast. Next came the storage unit I leased in a neighboring town. It was small, but perfect. I began filling it slowly, first with personal documents, then keepsakes, then my favorite things. I told Dana I was decluttering. She rolled her eyes and said I was nesting in middle age. I smiled and let her believe it. I didn't tell my parents. I knew what they'd say. Dana just needs more time. Be patient. You've always been so good at that. Family means sacrifice. Sacrifice. That word had lost all meaning. I had already sacrificed my 20s, my ambition, my mental health, and my peace. And for what? To be a backup plan. to be disposable once they drained me. Not anymore. I started putting together a spreadsheet of every dollar I'd spent since Dana moved in: groceries, school fees, utility spikes, emergency clothes. The total, $236.84. Not that I expected to see a cent back, but I needed to see it. I needed to witness the numbers they drained from me like parasites disguised as loved ones. I withdrew cash in small amounts, just enough not to raise red flags. I transferred my prescriptions to a new pharmacy in a different county. I rerouted my mail to a P.O. box. I even went so far as to change my emergency contact to my old friend Ellen in Maine, a woman I hadn't seen in 5 years, but who once told me, "If you ever need to disappear, come here. I'll leave the porch light on." It wasn't just logistics. It was emotional, too. I wrote letters. One to Dana, one to my parents. I didn't know if I'd leave them behind or mail them, but I wrote every word with brutal honesty. You used me. You assumed I would never say no. You treated my stability as servitude, and I'm not your fallback anymore. But not every part of my plan was cold. There was still a sliver of me that hoped for justice, not revenge, so I made a call. To a local women's foundation. I anonymously submitted Dana's name for financial counseling, job training, and support. If she wanted to survive without me, she would have the tools. I wouldn't condemn her. I just refused to be her cushion anymore. And then, I booked the flight. One way, Portland, Maine, October 9th, 6:10 a.m. 2 weeks away? 2 weeks until the girl who said yes to everything said goodbye. And they wouldn't see it coming, because I would leave like I lived, quietly, but this time free. The night before I left, I stood in the hallway for a long time. The house was finally quiet. Dana's kids asleep, her van keys tossed on the counter, my parents not calling for once. I ran my hand along the banister I'd painted myself 5 years ago. This house had seen the best and worst of me, and now, it was no longer mine. In the guest room, my old reading room, I left behind a single envelope with Dana's name on it. Inside the $236.84 bill, a list of local resources and one final sentence. You're smart enough to fix your own mess. I just won't be your broom anymore. I didn't sleep that night. I sat at the kitchen table watching the numbers on the oven clock blink toward dawn. At 5:10 a.m., I loaded the last of my boxes into the back of a rental SUV. By 5:40, I dropped the house keys in the mailbox and turned off my phone. No goodbye. No warning. No confrontation. By 6:10, I was in the sky watching the Pennsylvania suburbs fade into fog and clouds. I wasn't sad. I thought I would be, but I wasn't. I felt light. Ellen was waiting when I landed. She didn't ask questions. She just handed me a thermos of hot tea and drove me to a small cottage by the sea that smelled like pine wood and silence. It wasn't grand. It wasn't fancy. But it was mine. For the first 3 days, I didn't unpack. I just sat on the porch and listened to gulls, to waves, to the wind, to myself. Then on the 4th morning, I turned my phone back on. 12 missed calls, 5 voicemails, dozens of texts. The first ones were frantic. Where are you? Valerie, the kids need you. You're being dramatic. Come back. Then came the guilt. After everything we've done for you, you're abandoning your family. And then silence. For 2 days, nothing. Until finally one voicemail came in at 2:17 a.m. Dana's voice shaky, hoarse. I messed up. I know I did. I didn't realize how much you were doing for us. Please. I don't even know how to fix it. I replayed it once, then deleted it. Not because I hated her, but because I no longer needed her apology to live my life. The Valerie they remembered, the woman who waited, cleaned, organized, paid, explained, she was gone. In her place stood a woman who knew her worth. A woman who chose peace over permission. A woman who disappeared from their story and started writing her own. 3 months passed. The air in Maine had a way of softening the edges of even the deepest hurt. I found myself sleeping through the night. I started painting again, badly, joyfully. I joined a book club of women who didn't care where I came from, only what made my heart beat. I didn't check in. I didn't reach out. But slowly the world I'd left behind tried to creep back in, First a letter, my mother's handwriting. Crooked, rushed. We didn't realize what we asked of you. Or maybe we did. I never thought you'd walk away. Please know we're sorry. I hope you're safe. I hope you're happy. I folded it gently. I didn't reply. Then came Dana. She showed up. She drove the van across 6 states and parked it in front of Ellen's house. I don't know how she found me. Maybe my mother told her. Maybe she followed a trail I hadn't meant to leave. But there she was on the porch, eyes red, voice trembling. She didn't bring the kids. She didn't bring an attitude. Just a worn-out backpack and a single sentence. I came to say thank you and goodbye. I stood in the doorway for a long time. My hands were trembling. She looked smaller somehow, less loud, less defiant. Just tired. Human. We sat on the porch for nearly 2 hours. She told me the truth. That she had spiraled. That she didn't even want the house she sold. It was too much pressure. Too many expectations. That she envied me, the invisible one, she cried. And this time I knew it wasn't for show. And for the first time I let myself say it. You hurt me, Dana. You used me. And you made me feel like I didn't matter. She nodded. She didn't fight. She just said, I know. And then something strange happened. I forgave her. Not loudly, not with tears, but quietly inside myself. I let it go, not for her, but for me. Because bitterness is just another leash. And I was done being anyone's dog on a chain. She left the next morning. We hugged once, and then I watched her van disappear beyond the trees. That day, I walked to the beach with bare feet and pockets full of seashells. I felt the sun warm my face, and for the first time in decades, I wasn't waiting for the next disaster. I wasn't preparing to save anyone. I was just living. I still sent postcards. One to my mother, one to the kids. But I don't answer calls. And I don't go back. Because sometimes the best way to heal is to choose yourself, and I did. My name is Valerie Hart. I live by the sea now, and no one expects me to rescue them anymore.